I always thought honeymoons were supposed to feel like a beginning, not an ending you hadn't even realized had already started. We had chosen a quiet resort by the ocean, one of those places where everything feels soft. The light, the air, even your thoughts. The kind of place where people walk slower, speak quieter, and look at each other like nothing bad has ever happened to them. On our second morning there, I woke up before him. The curtains were slightly open, letting in that pale gold sunlight that makes everything feel like a memory while it's still happening. He was still asleep beside me, one arm stretched across the bed like he had claimed the space even in his dreams. I remember looking at him and thinking, this is it, this is my life now. That thought used to comfort me. Now it chills me. His phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. Once. Then again. I wasn't going to check it. I wasn't that kind of person. We had just gotten married. There wasn't supposed to be doubt this early. Doubt belonged to other people's stories, messy ones, distant ones. Not mine. But then it buzzed a third time. And something about that, something small and almost instinctive, made me turn my head. The screen lit up just enough for me to see a preview. An email. No name saved. Just a subject line. She can't know. I froze. At first, my brain tried to fix it. Tried to make it harmless. Maybe it was spam. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it wasn't even meant for him. But my body didn't believe any of those things. My body already knew. I glanced at him. Still asleep. Still peaceful. Still pretending, apparently. Slowly, carefully, I reached for the phone. I hesitated for a second, one last moment where I could choose not to know. But curiosity isn't the right word for what I felt. It was something sharper. Something that said, if you don't look now, you'll regret it forever. So I unlocked it. He had never changed his passcode. It was still his birthday. That hurt more than I expected, because it meant he wasn't hiding the phone. He just didn't think I'd ever look. I opened the email. It wasn't long. That was the worst part. No long explanations. No confusion. No ambiguity. Just a few lines. Cold. Direct. Calculated. Everything is set. The accounts are already moved. She can't know until it's finalized. After the honeymoon, it'll be easier. My hands went cold. I read it again. And again. Each time, the words seemed to settle deeper into my chest. The accounts are already moved. After the honeymoon. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't emotional. This was planned. Carefully. Quietly. Before we even got married. Before he stood there, looked into my eyes, and promised me honesty. I didn't cry. Not then. I think something in me understood that crying would make it real. And I wasn't ready for that. Instead, I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I forwarded the email to myself. My hands were steady. Too steady. Like I had stepped outside of my own body and was just watching someone else do it. Then I deleted the notification, locked the phone, placed it back exactly where it had been, and lay down beside him again. He shifted slightly in his sleep, turning toward me, his arm brushing against mine. Instinctively, I stayed still. Like if I moved, the illusion would break completely. A few minutes later, he woke up, smiled, kissed my shoulder. Good morning, wife. I smiled back. Good morning. And just like that, I started acting. That day, we went to the beach. We laughed, took pictures, ordered drinks we didn't need. At one point, he pulled me close in the water and said, I can't believe I get to do life with you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I realized something terrifying. He believed his own words. Or at least, he believed the version of the story where he wasn't the villain. That realization changed everything, because it meant this wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a strategy. I didn't confront him. Not that day. Not the next one either. Instead, I watched. I paid attention. Every time his phone buzzed, every time he stepped away to take a call, every time he casually mentioned something about future plans. And slowly, pieces started falling into place. He was moving money, not just his. Ours. Joint accounts we had just created. Savings I had contributed to for years. It wasn't impulsive. It was systematic. And it had started before the wedding, which meant He had married me knowing exactly what he was going to do after. On the fourth night, we had dinner at the resort's nicest restaurant.
Candlelight.
Ocean view, the kind of setting people dream about. Halfway through the meal, he reached across the table and took my hand. "I've been thinking," he said. I tilted my head slightly. "About what?" "Our future. Investments. Security. I think we should consolidate things. Make everything simpler." Simpler. I almost laughed. But instead, I squeezed his hand gently. "That sounds smart," I said. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Not heartbreak. Not anger. Clarity. Because now I knew exactly what he thought I was. Naive.
Trusting.
Easy to manage. That night, while he slept, I didn't check his phone again. I didn't need to. I already had what mattered. Instead, I opened my own, and I made a call. To a lawyer. When we got back from the honeymoon, everything looked normal. To him, at least. We unpacked.
Settled in.
Slipped into routines. He continued his quiet transfers, his subtle suggestions about finances, his carefully constructed version of our future. And I let him. For a while. Long enough. 2 weeks later, I asked him to sit down with me. "I've been thinking too," I said. He smiled, confident. "Comfortable." "About what?" I slid a printed document across the table. He glanced at it casually at first. Then his expression changed. "What is this?" "My account statements," I said calmly. "The ones you thought I wouldn't check." His face went pale. I watched the realization hit him. Slow. Heavy. Unavoidable. "You went through my phone?" he asked, grasping at the wrong thing. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I didn't need to," I said. "You told me everything. You just didn't realize it." I let the silence stretch. Then I added, softly. I forwarded the email to myself. That was the moment everything broke. What followed wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No thrown objects. Just excuses. Half-formed explanations. Attempts to reframe what he had done as something reasonable. "I was going to tell you. It's not what it looks like. I was protecting us." But the truth didn't need interpretation anymore. It had already introduced itself. The divorce process was quiet, efficient, precise. Because, while he had been planning his version of the future, I had rewritten mine. Looking back now, people always ask me the same question. "Did you have any idea before the honeymoon?" And I always give them the same answer.
No.
Because the truth is, some betrayals don't announce themselves. They sit beside you, smile at you, build a life with you, and wait. But here's what I learned. It's not the moment you discover the truth that defines you. It's what you do in the silence right after. When no one is watching. When nothing has exploded yet.
When you still have the choice to pretend.
On our honeymoon, I found an email that said, "She can't know." And for a moment, he was right. I didn't know. But not for long. And definitely not forever. He tried to delay it. That was his first instinct. Not denial, not exactly. He knew I had seen enough. But there was still this quiet, desperate attempt to slow everything down, like time itself might fix what he had already broken. "Let's not rush into anything," he said that night, standing in the kitchen like we were discussing a minor disagreement. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching him carefully. Rush. It was almost impressive. The way he could say that word after planning everything for weeks, maybe months, behind my back. "I'm not rushing," I replied calmly. "I'm catching up." That landed. I saw it in the way his shoulders stiffened, just slightly. The next few days were strange. We were still in the same house, but it felt like we were separated by something invisible and solid at the same time. He became quieter, more careful, but not in the way you'd expect. Not remorseful, strategic, like he was still trying to calculate what he could save from the situation. What he didn't realize was that phase was already over. 3 days later, I met with the lawyer in person. He was calm, methodical, the kind of man who didn't waste words. After reviewing everything, the email, the account activity, the timeline, he leaned back slightly and said something that stayed with me. He didn't think you'd notice in time. I held his gaze. And now, a small pause. Now it depends on how far you want to take this. That question mattered, because at that point I had options. I could walk away quietly, minimize the damage,
Or,
I could expose everything. That night, I sat alone in the living room, replaying the last few weeks in my head. The wedding, his vows, the honeymoon, the way he looked at me while lying so effortlessly. And then I remembered something small, something I hadn't thought about before. On the third day of our honeymoon, we had run into another couple at the resort. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary. The husband had said jokingly, "The secret is simple. Don't keep secrets." We all laughed. Even him. Especially him. That's when I made my decision. Not out of anger. Not even out of revenge. But out of something much colder. Precision. The process moved quickly after that. My lawyer handled the financial side with surgical accuracy. Accounts were traced. Transfers were documented. Every quiet move he had made was brought into the light. And suddenly, the advantage he thought he had disappeared. When he was officially served, he didn't come home that night. Or the next. Instead, he sent messages. At first, controlled. "We can still handle this privately." Then, more urgent. "You're blowing this out of proportion." And finally, the one that told me everything I needed to know. "You're going to regret this." I read that last message twice. Not because it scared me, but because it confirmed something important.
he still thought this was about control.
A week later, we saw each other again.
Courtroom.
Neutral ground. No soft lighting. No ocean views. No illusions. He looked different. Not broken.
But exposed.